All right, so I'll call the East Lyme Inland Wetland Agency special meeting.
It's a regular meeting. It's a
Regular
typo.
meeting.
Sorry.
That's okay. Of April 12th, 2021 to order at 7:01 p.m. And this meeting is being held via video conference on Zoom. So I'll start with a roll call. The members that are here today, I see Jason Diebel, Dave Schmidt, Phyllis Berger, Don Fimister, and Doreen Ryan. And yeah, no alternates. Right, we're good.
Right.
Okay.
Got everybody.
And then for staff, we have Jen Lindo, Gary Gashel, Sue Spang, and Paul Daigle. And then we have the one applicant, Chris Cassidy. I think I said that hopefully correctly. And, oh, sorry, hang on. I'm sorry. Can I just, can you give me 1 second? Sorry. Sorry, my son has drum lessons virtually, and I guess I thought they weren't having them, but they were, so sorry. Okay. All right, so before we start the meeting, just remember that while you're unmuted, we can hear you, and everything going on around you, we can also see you. Board members and staff will be unmuted during the entire meeting. As required by executive order, everyone must state their name, where they're from prior to speaking, and each time they speak. If you wish to speak during public delegations, please send a chat message to Jennifer Lindo. Please wait to be called on by myself or Ms. Lindo to speak. Once you finish speaking, please mute your microphone or phone. During each agenda item, only the board, staff, and presenters will be unmuted to speak on that particular item. Only one person may speak at a time. Board members will be called upon to provide comment via roll call. Members, for all motions, in the interest of making sure we have a clear record, please plan on a roll call vote so that the public and Sue taking minutes can be very clear on the record. Only hosts are permitted to share screens at this time. Any documents to be shared must come through Jennifer. As required by executive order, all documents being discussed and reviewed at the meeting must be posted on the town website no later than 24 hours prior to the meeting. This entire meeting is automatically recorded by Zoom, and upon the host logging out, the meeting will cease, and so will with the recording. The meeting cannot continue without the host. Any addition to the agenda requires a 2/3 vote of the commission and a motion. So starting the meeting, there's, so do we have additions to the agenda? Does anyone want to make a motion? I believe I heard possibly some.
I have a couple items I wanted to discuss. They may not be necessarily things that needed to be added to the agenda, maybe just things that are cleared up. As I'm kind of new to the commission or agency, I just have some kind of procedural questions.
Yeah, I think we can ask those, right? And then if something we need to discuss, we can make a motion to possibly add it to the agenda. Is that how this works?
Typically, you would, if you wanted to talk about procedures, maybe just have that added to the agenda under new business, and you would look for a motion to add that maybe under as item B under new business.
Okay, then I would make a motion that we add talking about procedures to the agenda under new business. Jason Diebel of 5 McKinnon Place, East Lyme.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it. Yeah. Oh,
Dave Schmidt or Phil Sperger, second. All
Yep.
those in favor, just see a show of hands. All right, everybody is good. So we'll add that, we'll discuss that under new business. All right, and then public delegations. There's no public delegations. Or no, that's when people can opt to speak about something that is not on the current agenda.
Yeah. So I have, I think, 1 or 2 members of the public. If you want to speak now, just unmute yourself, please, and you can speak to the commission.
right, you good?
I think you're good.
Okay,
Hey, I'm sorry.
no, that's okay.
I wanted to add a second part to the, actually, you know what, never mind. I'm sorry. I rescind my awkward interjection.
All right, so then next is acceptance of minutes. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes from the March 8th, 2021 meeting?
I move approval.
Dave Schmidt, and a second? Phyllis Berger. All those in favor? Hands. All right, good there. So now ex officio report, Mr. Daigle.
Hello. Not a whole bunch to report. Construction continues on the public safety building. It is budget time. The Board of Finance has started its budget review meetings, which is being supported by the first selectman and various town department heads. We have, at the Board of Selectmen, we have started a process of receiving input from some local charities and organizations regarding the American Recovery Act, the money that's going to come to the town. All the criteria is not clearly defined yet for the 1.9 million we're supposed to get as a town, and we're waiting to see what the state does with the additional money that has been allocated to counties by the federal government. There's hope that that'll come to the county and will be spread out amongst the New London County towns based per capita, but we don't know what the state will do, whether they'll pass it along or whether they do something else with it. But the U.S. Treasury, when they make that money available, which is anticipated in June, will provide some clear-cut guidelines on what it can be spent on. So looking at some capital projects potentially in town. We're looking at helping a couple of the local organizations that serve the community. So if anybody listening tonight has any recommendations on how that money could be invested, it can't be used to offset town budget requirements, and it can't be used to hire permanent staff, but it certainly can be used to help us better the East Line community. And we're looking at a lot of different ways. And the Board of Education will be getting their own grant. So right now it looks like it's primarily going to be used to do some things here in town. So like I said, the Board of Selectmen will continue to work that and hopefully get ourselves to a position. I think half the money is going to be available this year and then half next year. So opportunity to do some things that we don't have to directly impact the East Lyme property tax owners on, but obviously federal money comes from the taxpayers, so it is our money. So hopefully the plan is to put it to good use. So pending that, or any questions for any members of the agency, that's all I had to report tonight.
I think that sounds good. All right, so then new business. I see A is regulations discussion. I assume this is from you, Gary.
Yeah, I believe from the last meeting, there was a desire to pursue adding the requirement for a signage in the events of public hearings to the regulations. So the item was placed on the agenda for discussions amongst the commissioners. I think at the last meeting, I offered that if there were any other changes to the regs, maybe do them all at once. I think it's important to note that reg changes do require public hearings and notice, so there is an expense that the town will incur in changing the regulations. That said, I would leave it to the commission if they're all in favor of sign regulation. I was pointing to, I think the discussion revolved around copying what the subdivision and zoning regulations currently require for signage. Typically, that's a 2x4 sign, indicates the date of the hearing and what the activity is, roughly about, whether it's a site plan or subdivision. In this case, we would say wetland application of some sort. So if that's something the commission is interested in seeing, I can draft that up and email that out, and you can agree to the language. If that's something that you have a consensus on, then we can move forward and with the regulation change and public hearing. So I would leave it to the commission to deliberate.
So I'd like to speak first. In terms of pros and cons, the pros of this would be that it would sit better with the judiciary should there be any kind of issue that comes up legally speaking, correct?
That's correct. I mean, it's just additional notice that there's activity going on. As we know from subdivision and zoning applications, they do require signage. And that, if someone in the community doesn't necessarily get the newspaper or see or check the website and see that there's things going on, this is just another form of that notice. In both zoning and subdivision regs, there's requirements for the timing of that notice. It also advises when the sign has to be erected and then when it has to be taken down.
Generally speaking, how much does a sign like that cost to put in?
I do not know. I can't imagine more than a few $100s.
The cost falls to the permit or the applicant, correct?
Correct.
It's a couple $100. It depends on who does it. Some people will do them themselves, but it's,
That would be a con. I mean, we're already asking people to pony up money and hire soil scientists, and so that's an added expense to the applicant. The other thing I wonder about is we deal not with the subdivisions of lots, we deal with bodies of water. And if you're going to put a sign up, a lot of people share a water source. Like if we were going to say, take that hydro raking example from the last meeting, I mean, do they put up one sign? Are they going to be forced to put up 5 signs because this is a body of water that is approached from different roads, different angles? So I would be curious how to see it plays out in our purview, I guess is what I'm saying, in the wetlands application.
That's a good point, Jason, is in the case of, say, Lake Patagonia, the association, where do you put the sign? It could be construed that you have to put it on every lot in which the activity is going to be taking place. I mean, in that particular case,
That would be
or does the boat launch suffice? Those are questions maybe we could have legal counsel weigh in on and give us some advice there as far as what would or wouldn't work. Typically, permits run with the land, so the sign is usually erected on the subject parcel. But in the event of Lake Patagonia, that would be a good question. I would think maybe the boat launch would suffice, but.
Kristen, I think that both Mr. Schmidt and Ms. Berger have raised their hand.
Okay, yeah, I did see Phyllis first, so sorry, we'll start with Phyllis.
Unmute yourself. You're still muted. There you go.
So I don't know, I was thinking as far as the signage that it should be used when there's a public hearing. And I thought that's the way zoning also does it. Am I wrong, Gary?
No, that's correct. It's specifically for public hearings, both planning and zoning. require-
So for something like the Patagonia Lake, it would never even require signage.
Assuming the commission never sends it to a public hearing or there's not a petition filed for one.
I mean, we're looking at more at like a development, because I'm sure there's developments in town going through right now that people have no idea where they are.
Right. That very well may be true. So without signage, yeah, they may not know. Again, without looking at a legal ad or commission agendas, they may not know.
Okay.
And yeah, that is a good way, I think, to differentiate between the small applications versus the larger ones that are a little bit more concerning, I guess, to citizens. The public hearing aspect, that's a good idea. Dave, did you have a question?
I was only to ask, has there been a history of complaints from people about permits being issued of which they felt they had insufficient knowledge in advance to comment? Is this a real problem, or are we just being proactive against the possibility that someone might complain later on?
We've had a few meetings, even the one by the the landfill there. There were people had come and said that they didn't have the opportunity, they didn't know that it happened, and they were upset, and they could never actually talk about it because they just never, they missed the public hearing date, and then once that happens, they don't have the opportunity. So I do think it's a problem, especially for some maybe the more contentious projects that are a little bit larger. We have had people upset that they couldn't speak against, at least in my term here.
Mhm.
Does anyone else have anything to add or discuss?
This is Jason. Should we make a motion to advise Gary Gaishel to pass this along to legal counsel to make sure it plays well with what we do and get some suggested language out, maybe see where this goes?
I don't know that you need necessarily a motion, but I think what I would do is just take the language that we have. I'd modify it to fit the Inland Wetland Agency, and then I can send that to Mark Zamarka and have him look at that for consistency and with that, raise any red flags. And then just report back to the agency, or I can have Mark attend the next meeting and he can report directly to you.
Well, I think there's interest in this, and I think even those of us who are maybe a little bit skeptical might be interested in seeing how this comes out. So I would say go ahead. You have my blessing.
Yeah, is there anyone opposed to doing that? No? Okay, so we don't need to necessarily make a motion. So Gary, if you wouldn't mind, then just the next meeting, we'll discuss it further.
Yep, I'll come up with a draft, share it with Mark, and we'll report back.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks.
And then, so adding to new business would be Jason. You wanted to talk now?
Yes, I had two separate, I guess I just need to understand how the procedure works. In terms of enforcement, I had a property owner here in town reach out to me personally with a complaint about some clear cutting that was happening within, well, it was definitely within the Upland Review area, and he had kind of a litany of concerns, and I wasn't sure what to do with that information. I wasn't sure where I should go with it, what I should do, what we as a committee are responsible for in terms of dealing with that. And then also, this is kind of a similar issue. I was out running the other day and I saw one of my neighbors disconnect clear cutting their land, and I thought, do I as a commissioner have the responsibility to initiate some kind of enforcement action? Should I present them with the materials they're going to need to apply for dispensation to do what they're doing? So I just need to know what my place in all this is.
And I got a similar phone call from a realtor inquiring about some activity she had seen on a neighboring property that she found disturbing. So I texted Gary. Gary gave me an answer and I called her back. So.
Yeah, but that is a good question because I actually just recently saw someone suspected of, I think, of filling wetlands in. So again, yeah, because we can't go police these people. I'm a commission member. So how should we be handling this?
So procedurally, you would just notify me of the violation. If you can just give me the address as your enforcement agent, I will go out and enforce. I will advise them of the regulations, that the activity is or needs a permit, is in violation. I'll walk them through the process of corrective action. Typically, I'll issue a notice of violation, gives them the opportunity to come in. We can work with them. If it escalates and there's no corrective action, that next step is a cease and desist order, and that continues on to an injunction if necessary. But most homeowners, we can resolve things relatively quickly, at least within a few meetings. So that's the procedurally, is I would just give me a call, shoot me an email, whatever you're comfortable with there, and I will go pursue it. You can always bring it up at a meeting and say, hey, Gary, can you go check such and such an address? I driving by and I saw something. That would be my suggestion.
Can I just insert myself in here briefly? You can also, if you cannot reach Gary, call the office and talk to myself or Karen. We both do take messages for Gary and often communicate with him throughout the day if there's something that's immediately pressing. one of us can usually reach him.
Mr. Daigle has a comment.
Yep, Mr. Daigle.
I just want to make it clear that any citizen in East Lyme can follow that same process. It's not just a sole responsibility of agency members. So if anyone sees any activity that they think is in violation of town regulations, they can contact Town Hall, Gary Gaishel, or the office to have it investigated and action taken as necessary.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, Jason, because I totally forgot. I wanted to mention something along those lines as well.
Yeah, we get to tell on people.
Yeah. All right, and any other further discussion in regards to that? I think it's pretty clear who we need to contact now. Okay.
Yes, thank you. I do have a second issue that I'd like to bring up, and I'm happy Mr. Daigle's here. It has to do with our positions that are available. I'm sorry, alternate positions that are available. At the last site walk, none of us seemed to really know if we had alternates any longer. And I know we had a very qualified person who was interested or has expressed to me an interest in getting on as an alternate for the Inland Wetlands Agency. And I don't know if we as an agency make a recommendation towards the Board of Selectmen, or if we make a formal motion, or if we just say, hey, I've got this great resume. So I'd like to know what we can do with that, and what should we do with it.
My understanding, and Gary can help me based on his experience, but if anyone knows anyone who's interested in serving as an alternate or a replacement member, that can be provided to the first selectman's office, and then that'll be discussed at the Board of Selectmen, and it'll be appointed by the first selectman, is my understanding. You don't need to make a recommendation as an agency, because it may not be, not everyone on the agency may know or recommend a person. But first of all, get the person to submit a letter, their level of interest, a little bit of their background, and then we can go from there. But I've only seen one agency actually make a motion to say, we recommend this individual, and it was this agency. But I'm not sure, Gary, if it happens like that in other commissions or agencies, but it's usually a volunteer, and the name is put forward.
Typically, the commissions just say, hey, we know a specific person, we'll forward you that tomorrow, and we'll send it on up to the first selectman's office, and then the board discusses it.
Yeah. And your chairperson can follow it up with a call to Mr. Nickerson. Let him know that he or one of the major members or a couple of members of the agency know this person who's interested in volunteering and supporting the business of the agency or the commission that has the opening. I currently don't know the exact status, how many alternates you do or do not have available, but if you have one or more than one, and there's someone ready to stand up and help the agency, it's certainly good to have those alternates in place to support the conducting of business that you all do on a monthly or sometimes semi-monthly basis.
Thanks. So I guess I can reach out to Town Hall and find out exactly what our roster is. And I don't think it would be my responsibility as an agency member to reach out to those alternates who have not shown up, but maybe Gary Upton could do that. Or maybe, since I know a few of them personally, I could reach out, if no one minds, to see what their status is before asking this other person to a letter of intent to First Selectman's office.
I would agree. If the alternates aren't participating, and they can't, just like you all may have to miss a meeting at a time, but aren't participating, they would have to basically resign before you could replace that person, just like a full member, because they have been sworn in to serve as an alternate. So you don't necessarily want to force somebody out. On the other hand, if the chairperson has a general discussion with an alternate that hasn't been able to participate, then it's for the betterment of the agency, not necessary for individual, preference of who should or shouldn't be on the agency.
I would say based on the town assignment list as of March 2021, we have one alternate vacancy.
Thank you. And this concludes my questions about procedure. I get to tell on people, and we get to kick people out.
Don't say that with such glee.
I'll only add that if there is someone who's interested in joining and they have submitted a letter, if one of you want to forward that letter to me, I'd be more than happy to make sure we cover it at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Thanks.
All right, so that takes us into the pending applications. And the application of Chris Cassidy of Whole Forest Products, Inc. for a timber harvest operation at property owned by John Bialowens Jr. at 57 Walnut Hill Road, East Lyme, Connecticut. So we did go for a site walk there this weekend. There was Jason, Dave, Doreen, and I went and walked the property. And remind me, this was potentially added to the agenda last time, right? We haven't discussed this at all.
Correct.
Chris, start with the presentation. Does that work?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Chris Cassidy, Hull Forest Products. Pretty straightforward timber harvest that we have proposed tonight. There is the one intermittent drainage crossing that we viewed, nice established banks on it, and we'll hold up a temporary timber bridge very nicely. The rest of the project is high and dry, you know, some in the upland review area, but it's a selective timber harvest of the mature timber. Job is going to be carried out with a forwarder, so the logs will be carried out of the forest and stacked up in the landing area, which is right where we walked in on the site walk. The trees to be harvested are marked with blue, and it should take about a month and a half to conduct this operation. So I guess I'm here for any questions that you may have about it.
Chris, if you would like to put up a site plan, if you have one, the screen share is turned on, so you can go ahead and share your screen. That might help the agency members.
Okay, I don't know exactly how to do that. I saw it was on the shared stuff, the shared paperwork.
You want me to bring it up?
Yeah, that'd be great. There it is. So the orange dotted lines represent kind of established trails, woods, roads that are in there. That blue line that you see is the intermittent drainage that bisects the property, and the blue dot is the stream crossing where we stopped and saw it there. The orange dot over here by the road is where the landing area will be, and of course the Bialowens do own the house above it, so that is common property. It's about a 40-acre piece. There'll be about 50,000 feet of timber being removed.
And for the sake of those that weren't here, could you describe the crossing that you're going to put over this stream?
Sure. It's about a 5-foot channel, 4 to 5 foot channel with nice pronounced banks. So we're going to bridge it with a temporary timber mat, basically 6 by 8 bolted together to make a 4-foot by 16-foot mat, and we put 2 of those side by side, and that forms a temporary bridge. If the approaches tend to get soft, we can, you know, fortify that with some corduroy or smaller logs placed perpendicular to the trail to keep us up and out of the mud. And then when the job is done, all that will be removed.
So the bridge would basically be 8 feet wide and 16 feet long?
Yes, yep.
Thank you.
And you said that there was no stumping happening, so erosion.
No stumping, no grubbing, nope. No. The residual branching is kind of left in place, will be slashed down, meaning cut so it lays relatively flat to the ground. Nothing will be sticking up more than 3 feet from the ground.
Probably good with the map now, I think, right? Everyone's good. Go back to the headshots.
Somebody's got to click stop share.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my screen back because I minimized my view here.
Better you than me, Gary.
I think, Ray, we've been doing this for like a year now, and none of us know how to do what we need to do.
The tools at the bottom of my screen disappeared, so I don't know where they went.
Stop share is usually at the top.
Ah, there it is. Yeah, the tools went to the top. Okay. Thank you, Dave.
I host Zoom meetings 3 or 4 a week.
Apparently, I'm still novice.
Aren't we all?
All right. My review of the application seems to be pretty straightforward. I didn't have any specific concerns regarding the proposed crossing. This seems to be standard practice in the industry. So I have no further comments.
And Gary, no like restrictions as far as time of year? I mean, the stream bed was it was pretty deep there, like not the water flow, but I don't think that there would be any kind of spring overflow.
Not to my knowledge. It is it can be intermittent, I guess, the stream. That stream I've always seen flowing at some capacity. But I think the location that they're choosing is relatively narrow. I mean, it could be worse, but I think they'll be able to cross. You could shoot for August type of work, but I think if we have a few weeks, as the narrative says, a few weeks of good working weather, it should remain dry and be a non-issue.
Well, and that was part of my question. If the span is going to be 16 feet, that stream there was only what, maybe 3 to 5 feet wide. So 16 feet, it should be well above it and spanning it with a significant amount of bank holding it in place. So.
Right.
Does anyone else have any further discussion? Anybody like to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve his application.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Who pick anybody? All those in
Whoever.
favor? Raise some hands, please. All right, everybody. So, yeah, we've accepted the application then, and Gary will follow up with you as procedurally what happens next.
Yes, we'll send you a copy of the permit, and notice will be published in the day paper, in this case online because of the executive orders, and there's a 15-day appeal period, but after that period expires, you're well on your way. You can begin work.
Perfect. The question does arise about the fee. I know we were a little up in the air as to what the fee of this application would be, whether it was permitted as use of right or a full-blown permit. Has there been any discussion about that?
I believe the fee would be, well, that having the commission having approved the application, I believe there would be a fee. 'Cause
Okay.
that's basically saying it's a regulated activity. And this commission historically has looked at these stream crossings associated with these forestry operations as regulated.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be calculated based on the area of the square footage area that's disturbed. At the back of the application, there is the fee schedule. We do have the base fee application, which I don't know off the top of my head. Give me a second. So I believe the fee I would view this as a commercial use, so the base fee would be $400. And then if the area being disturbed is less than 1,000 square feet, there's no additional fee. If it's
All right.
over 1,000 square feet, it's $250. Beyond 5,000 square feet, it's $750.
Right, right.
Plus the
Okay.
$60 state fee.
Thank you, Jen.
So 460. All right.
Yes.
I'll get that off to you, and thank you for listening to me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
All righty.
All right, so no old business to discuss. Next would be our chairman's report.
He's not here.
Yeah, and I don't have anything, right? I lost Jen.
I'm here.
Jen like nodding like, you're good.
You're good.
Everything good? Okay, next.
Yep.
Inland Wetlands Agent Report. That would be you, Gary.
I don't have much. We did, I think at the last meeting, I indicated I was reviewing several permits. I have since issued those permits. We've had additional permits come in. I believe, just as some background, since the adoption of the upland review area, to date, I've issued 24 administrative permits. Whereas we typically average about 1 to 2 a month previously.
Yep.
So that's just a bit of background. Otherwise, we just have received some correspondence from Eversource. I wanted to bring that to your attention. I believe you have a copy of that, and that was part of the materials for tonight's meeting. They are doing some line clearing under their lines, and there will be some impact to approximately 10,240 square feet of wetland, and their temporary impacts. Just wanted you to be aware. And it's roughly in the location of the kind of the Route 1 and 395-95 interchange there, the power line trail that goes up into what would have been the New England Forestry Foundation's, now the Nyack River Headwaters Preserve. There's a few parcels out there with a big, I guess, tower. They're going to go in there and be doing a bunch of work. So if you see work along there, that is Eversource. And unfortunately, we don't get to look at that application. That's all handled by the Connecticut Siting Council. But, that's all I have.
All right, and then enforcement, we've got nothing. No, sorry, I skipped. We did that in correspondence from Eversource, and that looks like it's it for today. Yeah, nothing else, right, Phyllis?
Yeah, I just have a question for Gary as to when he thinks we might resume normal meetings in the town hall.
That's a good question. The executive orders run out somewhere near the end of this month. It's anticipated that our hearing, that some orders may be extended into May. So we'd be zooming it. The other issue we have is at town hall. It looks like the governor signed a bill, and there's some legislation out there too, saying that the hybrid model may be mandatory. So we're looking into that. And if that's the case, then we're going to have to somehow figure out a Zoom from town hall if we had to hold a public meeting and Zoom. I think it's going to be very cumbersome. So I hope the legislature and those involved take a close look at that, and try to ease the burden on the municipalities as it pertains to meetings. But I really don't know for certain when we'll be back in the town hall. I'm thinking it's going to be after May.
And at the state level, they're not back to public meetings yet. And so I think there's quite a bit of debate there. And depending on how they resolve their differences, may or may not affect how the towns have to proceed. And if they do invoke the hybrid model where it has to be live streamed from, the town facility, then the town's going to have to come through the technology and the process by which to be able to conduct that. So it may not be anytime soon, but.
So for now.
I know one of the historical home groups did meet in person, but that doesn't get a lot of public scrutiny, and it doesn't have, public meetings, hearings at least, so. But other than that, I think every other town commission and agency still work meeting via Zoom.
I'm an alternate on Zoning Board of Appeals, and we did have one in-person meeting so far.
Gary, do you suspect that we'll have a site walk next month?
At this point, I don't have any pending applications. I have a lot of irons in the fire, if you will. I suspect somewhere closer toward the summer, we'll start seeing some additional applications. Again, there is an influx of money as a result of COVID, and with things opening up, there's more and more buildings. So I think I'm anticipating some more pressure, at least for the next year. So somewhere probably starting in the fall, late summer, we may start seeing applications. If we don't, then that'll be a little bit of a head scratcher, and we'll just see where the economy goes.
Just to clarify, do you normally come to site walks or not always?
Typically I do, yes.
Okay.
I just had a conflict and was unable to attend.
Okay. We weren't sure. We waited around, and I felt bad because we made the other people wait.
Yeah, we wound up waiting for over 20 minutes because Gary Upton didn't show up, you didn't show up, we were going,
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was clear in the email that I was unable to attend, but maybe that got crossed, and that only went to Gary, possibly, so.
Yeah, no problem. I just wasn't sure that
Right. No,
I thought we were typically there, and then we weren't sure. But again, I thought Gary Upton was supposed to go too, and he wasn't there either. So.
What she's saying is we were lost without you.
I think we made it fine.
We did. We figured it out.
We can walk without Gary.
All right.
Forged ahead. All right. So I guess, is that it? Anybody else have anything else they want to say real quick? We're good.
Yeah, I move we adjourn.
A
Alright.
second.
Phyllis seconds. All those in favor? Everybody? All right. That's it. We'll see you next month.